Hey folks, today I'm excited to share an astonishing story about Father Emilio Castellano, a priest whose life took a completely unexpected turn after a harrowing accident that led him to a near-death experience. This incredible journey opened his eyes to revelations about humanity's future that might just change the way you think about spirituality. But before we get into it, I'd love to hear from you. Where are you tuning in from? And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's a great time to hit that button and turn on notifications so you won't miss any of our future episodes. Let me take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Elijah Renwood, and I grew up in a charming little town in Alabama, where my childhood was deeply rooted in the teachings of the Catholic faith. My parents were devoted to their beliefs, and from a young age, they made sure I understood the importance of the church. I always felt this unique connection to a higher power, a sense that there was something greater waiting for me out there. So when I turned 18, heading to the seminary just felt right. It seemed like the most obvious path for me. I dedicated the following years to intense study, prayer, and all the essential preparations for this calling. At 25, when I finally became a priest, it was one of the happiest days of my life, like I had found my true place in the world. After my ordination, I was assigned to a parish in Havenport. Oh, Havenport. The town is rich with history, featuring charming streets, trees draped in moss, and that lovely blend of river and ocean aromas wafting through the air. Every nook and cranny seemed to hold stories just waiting to be uncovered. I relished my leisurely strolls along those cobbled pathways, soaking in the beautiful architecture and letting my imagination wander. Being a priest kept me on my toes. My days were packed but incredibly rewarding. Mornings kicked off with Mass, followed by community service that included hearing confessions, visiting hospital patients, and preparing my sermons. Many evenings I'd find myself burning the midnight oil, poring over scripture, or organizing community events. It felt wonderful to make a difference, especially when someone expressed how my words struck a chord with them or how I had helped guide them. Those moments truly fueled my sense of purpose. But, it wasn't always smooth sailing. There were times when I found myself questioning my purpose, wondering if I was really making a difference in people's lives and helping them connect with God. However, I generally felt at peace with who I was and what I did. I believed I had a solid grip on faith, as well as a good understanding of what life and death entailed. After all, I had studied these topics deeply and figured I knew what awaited us once we crossed over from this realm. Every Sunday for years, I stood in front of my congregation, delivering sermons fueled by my convictions about life and faith. But then one Wednesday afternoon turned out to be completely unexpected in ways I could never have foreseen. I had just wrapped up the midday Mass and was gearing up to visit a few patients at the hospital. Rain poured down steadily, casting a somber atmosphere that oddly brought me comfort as I drove along, lost in thought. As I made my way through Havenport on Cedar Avenue, I was sifting through ideas for my next sermon when everything changed in an instant. Who would have thought such a regular trip could twist my life into a new direction? With majestic old oak trees lining the street, the slick roads glistened beneath the relentless rain. I caught a glimpse of the clock, 1:47 p.m., a detail that would stay etched in my mind as the events unfolded. Despite being a cautious driver, fate had different plans that day. Just as I rounded a gentle curve, my heart dropped when I saw a car barreling towards me in the wrong lane. Everything shifted in a blink. 1 second I was detailing my sermon ideas, and the next was engulfed in chaos. The crash was explosive, a violent symphony of metal twisting and glass breaking. I felt my body lurch forward, then snap back like a rag doll tossed about. An airbag exploded into my face, momentarily blinding me, and pain surged through me, intense and all-consuming. I was immobilized, trapped. When I tried to scream, no sound emerged. The acrid smell of gasoline mixed with burning rubber overwhelmed my senses, leaving me queasy. Slowly, as my vision cleared, reality hit me. My once trusty car lay mangled, crumbled like an empty soda can. Rain dripped down the shattered windshield, distorting my view of the world outside. The steering wheel pressed brutally against my chest, making each breath feel like a struggle. I tried to shift, to break free from the confines pressing me down, But it was as if my body had betrayed me. A wave of panic crashed over me. Was this really the end of my story? The twist of fate was striking. I, who had often spoken about the fragility of life, now found myself grappling with my own mortality. In the distance, the sound of sirens pierced through the chaos. Someone had definitely called for help. Despite the searing pain threatening to overwhelm me, I fought to stay alert. My vision started to fade again, and fatigue washed over me as I struggled to grasp the reality of the moment. Just when I thought I might black out completely, an unexpected shift occurred. Slowly, the agony that had engulfed me began to recede. It wasn't gone, but it felt distant, as if detached from my very being. That's when the most extraordinary and frightening part of my life began. Imagine existing outside your own body. It sounds wild, right? If I hadn't experienced it myself, I would have thought someone was spinning a tall tale. Yet there I was, hovering above the crumpled car, looking down at my unmoving form. This sensation was beyond anything I could describe. I felt unburdened, free from pain, as if I were nothing but awareness itself. Everything around me popped with life, the still cars, the compassionate strangers rushing to help, the rain pouring down. It was all vibrantly alive. I tried to call out, to connect with someone, but it was as if I were invisible. I existed, yet I didn't truly belong there. In that surreal moment, I realized I might be dying or had already crossed into something beyond. And the scariest part, I had no idea what lay ahead. As I lingered above the turmoil, I began to feel an undeniable pull, like a presence was inviting me closer. What started as a gentle tug intensified, and suddenly I was being drawn away from the scene of the crash. Everything blurred around me, and it felt like I was racing through the void. Colors merged into a stunning tunnel of light. You've heard people talk about their near-death experiences? I always brushed those stories off, thinking they were mere exaggerations, but now I found myself living it. The tunnel seemed endless, and I couldn't tell if I had been flying through it for moments or lifetimes. Time itself seemed to dissolve. As I continued down this otherworldly path, I began to hear whispers. Initially, they were soft and distant, but gradually they sharpened into voices I recognized. I could sense the presence of my parents, childhood friends, and even those who had moved on long ago. It felt like my life was playing back, not in pictures, but through echoes and sounds. As I journeyed through this strange experience, thoughts of my faith came and went, flickering like a candle in the wind. Although I had spent years as a priest contemplating the afterlife, discussing heaven and hell, none of that prepared me for what I was facing. It was uniquely profound and utterly beyond my understanding. The farther I traveled down the tunnel, an overwhelming peace began to wrap around me. At first, fear and confusion gripped me, but soon everything changed. It felt like I was entering a space that was oddly familiar, like coming home after being away for far too long. I distinctly remember thinking, "This is it. I'm heading to heaven, and soon I'll meet God face to face." But then the light at the end of the tunnel, which I had eagerly anticipated, began to fade. Instead of illuminating my path, it dimmed and lost its charm. That once peaceful feeling quickly transformed into a gnawing discomfort, a creeping awareness that something was terribly wrong. In a heartbeat, the welcoming tunnel of light disappeared, plunging me into an unfathomable darkness. It wasn't just dark, it felt almost sentient, wrapping around me like a suffocating shroud. My fear shifted from the thought of dying to a bone-chilling uncertainty about what lay ahead. I wanted to cry out, but my voice seemed to vanish. It felt as though I was nothing more than a wayward thought lost in an endless void. Suddenly I realized I was nowhere near heaven. What lay ahead was a revelation that shattered everything I thought I understood about the afterlife, despite my years in the clergy. Gradually, my perceptions began to adjust to the surrounding darkness, and what emerged was something that defied all my expectations. I was standing on the edge of a reality that would rock the very core of my beliefs. Piece by piece, the shadows began to retreat, revealing a scene I wished I could erase from my mind. It wasn't the hell portrayed by artists with their fiery landscapes and tortured souls. No, this was something entirely different, far more disturbing. The colors were unlike anything I could explain. Imagine a chaotic blend of every color in the rainbow, overlaid with a thick film of gray. It's the best way I can describe it. Imagine vibrant colors swirling all around me, alive and shifting in a mesmerizing dance. The ground beneath me, if you could even call it that, throbbed with a strange, unsettling energy. It didn't have the solid feel one would expect. Rather, it seemed stitched together from a fabric of raw emotions: anger, fear, despair. Every movement I made, even without a physical form, was like stepping through a landscape of painful memories. The heat enveloped me, not the kind from flames, but an intense, inner heat that set every part of me simmering. It radiated shame, regret, and guilt, an unquenchable fire that devoured my very essence. Breathing was an effort, each breath feeling like it was weighted down by the oppressive atmosphere around me. The air carried an overwhelming scent, heavy with the burden of lost opportunities and unspoken thoughts. But the sounds were what really struck me, an endless chorus of screams. They weren't just cries of agony. No, they were the mournful wails of souls trapped by their past choices. I could hear murmurs of regret and shattered promises, sometimes even a chilling laughter that stripped joy of its essence, echoing madness. As I navigated through this nightmarish vision, shadows of others began to reveal themselves, lost souls drifting like ghosts. Some were on their knees in despair, while others shouted into the void, begging for forgiveness or a chance to start anew. What shook me the most was recognizing familiar faces, individuals I had once admired, people I thought would never find themselves in such a wretched place. Then, amid the chaos, I caught sight of a figure that sent shockwaves coursing through me. It was Father Emilio Castellano, my mentor and guiding light during seminary. To see him trapped in such a horrific realm was more harrowing than the incident that brought me here in the first place. His once wise and warm gaze now appeared vacant. When our eyes locked, he called out, "Elijah, it's not too late. You can still change." I stood there, confused, drowning in questions about how change could even happen and where I had gone wrong. With sorrow etched into every word he shared, the devotion I showed was just a mask. Pride, greed, and hypocrisy consumed my heart. I never truly sought God. It was all for show. His confession struck me hard, leaving me gasping for breath. I never imagined that the man I admired for his unwavering faith would reveal that everything he stood for was a deception. My initial shock and skepticism collided with the sorrow etched on the faces around me, compelling me to rethink my assumptions. This place, which felt like pure torment, wasn't just a divine retribution. It was a reflection of our own decisions. Just when I thought things couldn't get any more overwhelming, an incredible light shattered the heavy darkness enveloping me. This wasn't just any light. It had an ethereal quality, filling my being with warmth and clarity without the slightest glare. From within this brilliance, a form began to emerge. It was difficult to describe, something that resembled a being made entirely of energy, remarkably human, yet unlike anything I'd ever seen. In that moment, I instinctively understood that I was standing before an angel. Imagine a visage exuding peace, yet those eyes, wow, like they contained all the galaxies. Their depth held an ancient wisdom that was both intimidating and inviting. Then, the angel spoke with a voice that was deep, soothing, almost like gentle rumbling. It penetrated every corner of my spirit. "Elijah, hell isn't really as you think it is," the angel expressed. Caught off guard, I stammered, "What do you mean by that?" I took a survey of the desolation surrounding us, trying to grasp the full weight of his words. But just as I was about to articulate my confusion, the angel raised his hand gently. "This place is more than just physical pain," he elaborated. "It unveils the true nature of the souls trapped here." His words felt like a curtain lifting, allowing me to see the tormented spirits around us in a different light. Their suffering wasn't merely a reaction to their environment, it stemmed from their own inner battles. He continued, "Many who proclaim their faith show it on the outside, but haven't genuinely pursued the love of God. Their souls linger in this desolation, lost because they have strayed from authenticity." Those words resonated deeply within me. I realized how often I had focused on surface-level appearances, mistaking them for real devotion. How many times had I misjudged someone based solely on how they expressed their faith, ignoring the complexities of their inner lives? The angel seemed to sense my inner conflict and softened his voice. "Your presence here has significance, Elijah. True faith doesn't lie in empty rituals or strict adherence to doctrine. It's found in sincerity that comes from the heart. Imagine the wave of emotion crashing over me as I grappled with the implications of my role as a priest. Had I truly grasped the essence of faith during all those sermons? "Don't forget, Elijah," the angel insisted. "Your time on earth is far from finished." Before I had a chance to collect my thoughts, an intense light enveloped me, saturating every part of my being. It was a wonderfully overwhelming experience, like being washed clean and renewed. A deep sense of peace surrounded me, something I had never felt before. But in an instant, everything changed. The darkness, the cries, the angel, they all disappeared, and I felt an irresistible force pulling me back. Then a sharp wave of pain surged through me. When I finally opened my eyes, I was greeted by the sterile environment of a hospital room, the relentless beeping of machines, and the strong scent of antiseptic. I had come back. The harsh fluorescent lights felt blinding, and the noise buzzed all around me, jarring my senses. I tried to speak, but my throat was painfully dry. As I came to, a nurse noticed I was awake and quickly rushed off to get the doctor. When they returned, their expressions, surprised and relieved, were unforgettable. Later, I discovered that I had been in a coma for almost 2 weeks. Those days had been filled with uncertainty for them, while for me, it was as if time had become a vast emptiness. The following days flew by in a haze of checkups, appointments, and physical therapy. The evidence of my accident was all over me: broken ribs, a fractured leg, and countless bruises. I understood that recovering physically would be a long and challenging road. Yet strangely, it wasn't the physical pain that weighed heavily on my mind. It was more this unsettling awareness that something inside me had changed forever. How could I even begin to articulate my experience to others? And how could I continue as the same priest after all that had happened? My room was filled with visitors. Parishioners brought flowers, cards, and words of kindness. I appreciated their gestures and tried to smile back, yet inside I felt a storm of confusion. Every time someone remarked, "Thank God you made it," or "It was a miracle," it was as if a heavy weight settled on my chest. They couldn't see what was truly going on beneath the surface. My bishop made a visit to share some heartwarming news, how the community had all come together in prayer for me. People were eager for my return, but while he spoke, my thoughts wandered back to Father Emilio Castellano and the unsettling visions of souls I had experienced in that shadowy place. How could I possibly go back to preaching the same messages as before? The toughest moments were the nights spent alone in the hospital room. I couldn't help but cry. A mix of confusion, fear, and even relief flooded over me. There were times I would awaken in terror, screaming as I relived those nightmares. The nurses would rush in, thinking I was in physical pain, but I knew my suffering ran much deeper. It was a wound that lay buried within my soul. Days turned into weeks, but finally, the date of my release arrived. Moving back home meant stepping into my little apartment next to the church, yet everything felt so different. The religious artifacts that had once brought me comfort now seemed empty, mere reminders of a faith that felt distant. As I settled into my armchair and stared out the window, I found myself wrestling with what had transpired and how to reconcile my long-held beliefs with my recent experiences. This became a period of deep reflection, a true crisis of faith. Bit by bit, I began to find a new viewpoint. An angel's voice echoed in my mind. Real faith isn't about strict rituals or dogmatic rules. It lies in the sincerity and purity of one's heart. I questioned everything, wondering if my true calling was to lead others toward a more authentic experience of faith. When the moment arrived for me to return to the church, I felt that everything had changed. I had transformed, and my approach to ministry would need to evolve alongside me. The challenge was figuring out how to adapt my message without alienating those who had relied on my spiritual leadership. Standing in front of the congregation for the first time after the accident, my stomach fluttered in a way I had never felt before. As I looked around, I could see those familiar faces, all watching me with eager anticipation. With a deep breath, I began to speak, but this time, it wasn't about strict rules or doctrines. I focused on love, on authenticity, and the genuine journey toward God that emerges from heartfelt sincerity, not just from rituals and words. Imagine the moment I stepped into a new phase of my life and ministry. It was filled with challenges and questions, but also an opportunity to deepen my understanding of what faith really means. After I returned to the parish, something inside me shifted. I felt the need to revamp my approach to preaching. My sermons transformed. Instead of strictly adhering to rules and delving into the details of rituals, I began to emphasize God's infinite love. I realized the importance of being sincere and nurturing a genuine relationship with the divine. Initially, I was hesitant about sharing my near-death experience with the community. I worried it might come off as strange or even shake the trust they had in me. Still, a voice inside urged me to be honest. This experience wasn't just a personal revelation. It was something that needed to be voiced. So on a particular Sunday, after hours of reflection and prayer, I made the decision to open up to my congregation. The atmosphere was the same as always, with the church buzzing with familiar faces. As I approached the pulpit, I took a deep breath to steady my nerves. "Brothers and sisters," I began, "I have something important to share, something that has shifted my entire perspective on faith." With my heart wide open, I recounted everything: the accident, my out-of-body experience, the radiant tunnel, the darkness I faced, and my encounter with the angel. As I shared my story, I could see the variety of reactions in the room. Some were taken aback, others skeptical, and a few had tears in their eyes, while some seemed noticeably uneasy. Each word I spoke felt heavy with significance. I conveyed how this journey had transformed my understanding of spirituality, reminding us all that we often get caught up in the external trappings of religion, forgetting the essence of divine love. I stressed that what truly counts for God isn't our attendance at church or strict law following. What matters most are the intentions in our hearts, our compassion for one another, and our earnest desire for a deeper connection with the divine. When I finished, an intense silence blanketed the church, lingering like a thick fog. Slowly, responses began to emerge. Some people came forward, wrapping their arms around me with tears cascading down their cheeks, sharing just how deeply my words resonated with them. Confusion hung in the air as people tried to wrap their heads around what they just heard. In the weeks that followed, my door swung open almost constantly, welcoming a stream of visitors eager to dig deeper and understand more. Some shared their own stories of brushes with death, tales they had kept hidden for fear of being disbelieved. However, not every voice was supportive. A section of the congregation, particularly those with more conservative views, expressed their unease with my shifted outlook. I caught wind of whispers suggesting I had strayed from reality since my accident, and a few members even chose to distance themselves, considering my views to be a threat or outright heresy. But for every person who turned their back, it felt like two others were stepping forward, intrigued. Many who had never felt a sense of belonging in church, those who perceived faith as something rigid and unwelcoming, began to find comfort in what I was expressing. I started organizing discussion groups, creating a nurturing environment where individuals could freely share their doubts, experiences, and fears without the fear of judgment. These gatherings became spaces for real connection and collective growth. The insights I gained from my brush with death didn't just open my eyes, they seemed to resonate deep within the hearts of many in our community. By sharing my story, I inadvertently inspired others to explore their spiritual journeys in a more genuine way. It wasn't always easy, though. Occasionally, memories of the dark things I faced on the other side would resurface, waking me from sleep drenched in cold sweat as unsettling scenes replayed in my mind. Yet, during those haunting moments, I found solace in the reassuring words of the angel and the warmth of the light. I began to realize that my purpose had grown far beyond what I had originally imagined. It was no longer just about preaching or leading a congregation. It became about nurturing others in their spiritual quests. Imagine a journey where people genuinely connect with the divine, experiencing God's unconditional love not through rigid doctrines or rituals, but by tapping into their own hearts. In the months following my near-fatal experience, I underwent a profound transformation that reshaped my ministry in unexpected ways. At first, I saw my role as a priest as a guardian of doctrine, guiding people along the so-called right path of faith. But that viewpoint underwent a remarkable shift. I started to view my role not merely as a leader, but as someone journeying alongside others in their spiritual lives. I'm on a path of learning, growth, and yes, the occasional stumble, just like everyone else. This shift in perspective changed how I conducted services and connected with people. Instead of lengthy sermons where I was the only voice, I aimed to create a welcoming environment. I invited conversations, posed questions during my talks, and encouraged everyone to share their insights and experiences. In one-on-one meetings, my strategy evolved. I began listening more intently, realizing that many have the wisdom inside them. They just needed a little nudge to access it. Rather than offering straightforward advice, I would ask things like, "What do you think God is revealing to you through this?" Or, "How would you feel if you were in that person's shoes?" I also delved into what God's unconditional love means for each person right now. My understanding of different faiths underwent a transformation too. There was a time when I held a more exclusive perspective on the Catholic Church, but after experiencing the expansiveness and mystery of the divine, I recognized that God goes beyond any one belief system. I started engaging in conversations with leaders from other religions and organized interfaith gatherings within the parish. While this approach made some traditional members uneasy at first, many eventually began to see the value and depth these discussions could offer. Nature became another realm of profound revelation for me. After that intense cosmic encounter during my near-death experience, I found joy in God's creation all around me. I initiated outdoor spiritual retreats, encouraging others to encounter the divine in the simple grace of a flower, the calming whispers of a stream, or the gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze. One of the largest changes in my approach was regarding pain and mortality. In the past, I often tried to console others by implying that their hardships were part of God's plan, or that their departed loved ones were in a better place. Now, I offer support with a more empathetic and compassionate approach, helping them find solace amid their suffering. I've come to understand that phrases like, "you're in a better place," might come from a good place, but they often ring hollow to those truly struggling with grief. I decided to shift the direction of our conversations to view suffering as something that can help us grow. It's amazing how these experiences tie us together as human beings. Whenever someone was grieving for a loved one, I stopped trying to explain death away. Instead, I just offered my presence. Whether it was providing a shoulder to lean on, listening intently, or simply holding them in silence, I found that my support meant so much more. This new perspective also changed how I thought about sin and forgiveness. In the past, I viewed sin like a checklist of rules, broken laws needing to be accounted for. But then I realized it's really about straying from love for God, our neighbors, and even ourselves. Forgiveness shifted too. It wasn't just something I felt I had to give in God's name anymore. It turned into a personal journey of healing for both me and those I helped. Now, the road I chose wasn't always smooth. I had my moments of doubt, questioning if my near-death experience was just a product of my mind, maybe even a hallucination brought on by the trauma of the accident. Yet during those times of uncertainty, I reminded myself of the crystal-clear perspectives I gained from that experience and the powerful messages I received. Those memories fueled my resolve. Skepticism was another hurdle. Some folks in the church viewed my approach as deviating from traditional doctrine, accusing me of leaning towards New Age beliefs instead of genuine Catholic teachings. I found myself in lengthy dialogues with my bishop, sharing my experiences and how they actually strengthened my faith instead of weakening it. Fortunately, my bishop had a progressive outlook. He may not have been able to endorse everything I was saying. After all, near-death experiences aren't exactly part of church policy. But he recognized my sincerity and saw how my new approach was positively impacting those around me. One of the most rewarding parts of this new journey was seeing those who had drifted away from the church start to return. People who once felt judged or marginalized found a space that welcomed them with open arms. Divorced couples, LGBTQ+ individuals, and those from different faith backgrounds all felt embraced and respected. It was heartening to witness such a diverse community come together in love. As I recounted my experiences, I found myself inundated with invitations to speak at various parishes, retreats, and even some larger conferences. Each time I shared a part of my journey, it was clear how it touched others deeply. Many people came up to me afterwards, eager to open up about their own spiritual paths, stories they had often kept to themselves. This back and forth created a beautiful cycle of connection, enriching our community in ways I hadn't expected. Reflecting on the past, I realized that my encounter with death wasn't just an endpoint, it was a new beginning. Each day brought its own set of challenges and insights, offering countless chances for growth. I certainly didn't hold all the answers. In fact, the more I learned, the more apparent it became just how much there was still to explore. Yet amid all this, one thing remained certain. My faith didn't just stand firm, it blossomed in ways I never thought possible. I found my mission clear, to share this vibrant faith with everyone I met. Over time, I observed that the impact of my experience was rippling out far beyond my own life and local parish. It felt like I had dropped a stone into a calm pond, with the ripples extending outwards, influencing lives in remarkable ways. Changes within our community were undeniable. What had once been viewed as a rigid and imposing church transformed into a welcoming space full of warmth and inclusivity. People from all walks of life felt invited to step inside, even if just to enjoy a moment of quiet contemplation. One of the most fascinating outcomes was the creation of a support group for those who had experienced near-death moments or significant spiritual awakenings. It started off small, with just a handful of individuals meeting monthly in the parish hall. Before long, it grew, attracting participants from nearby towns. Those gatherings became a treasure trove of unforgettable stories. There was a man who, having died during surgery, came back with a remarkable understanding of how everything is interconnected. Another shared her experience of receiving a soothing message from her late grandmother during a moment of crisis. Then there was a teenager who, during a life-threatening illness, had an out-of-body experience that completely shifted his perspective on life and death. What truly amazed me was the deep transformation evident in each of these individuals. Imagine a scene where everyone shares a newfound appreciation for each moment in life. It was a time filled with deeper purpose and a better understanding of love and compassion. In these gatherings, people found a safe haven to express their doubts and fears, something they hesitated to do with friends or family for fear of being dismissed as crazy or misguided. But within this welcoming group, they experienced a genuine embrace of compassion and acceptance. Our parish took significant steps to create events that nurtured community and connection, becoming another wonderful avenue for personal exploration and growth. We began to redefine what spirituality meant to us, offering meditation classes and workshops focused on inner healing, along with peaceful, silent retreats. Our bond grew even stronger with the introduction of a gardening initiative. We began to see it not just as planting seeds, but as a way to connect spiritually with the beauty of God's creation. The impact of these efforts spread beyond our local circle. I soon found myself being invited to share my insights at various churches, engaging with congregations from different denominations. I was fortunate to participate in discussions at conferences that explored the fascinating crossroads of spirituality and science. Talking with doctors, psychologists, and researchers about the mysteries of near-death experiences was nothing short of exhilarating. One standout moment was when I got to speak at a university nearby. The crowd was diverse, a mix of theology students, aspiring medical professionals, psychology buffs, and philosophy enthusiasts. The atmosphere was charged, and the discussions that followed were among the most intellectually stimulating I've ever experienced. Of course, the journey wasn't without its hurdles. Some people reached out to condemn me, accusing me of heresy and claiming I was misleading others away from true faith. A few conservative blogs even branded me as a New Age priest, urging my removal from ministry. Yet in the face of these criticisms, I was met with a wave of support. Many people sent heartfelt messages, expressing how my story had rekindled their faith or helped them navigate their own spiritual paths. Then came an unexpected twist: media attention. Local newspapers began featuring interviews that captured the essence of my journey, and soon enough, it escalated to national coverage. I found myself on radio shows and involved in TV documentaries centered on near-death experiences, sharing my story with a broader audience and engaging even more people in meaningful conversations about spirituality. Imagine attending various public events where the core message I aimed to convey revolved around the importance of love, compassion, and the genuine quest for a deeper connection with the divine. As my narrative spread, I was inundated with letters and emails from individuals not only across the country, but from every corner of the globe. Some shared their own spiritual stories, while others posed profound questions about life, death, and what might lie beyond. I made a concerted effort to reply to each message, reminding everyone that my insights emerged from personal experiences and that their journeys were uniquely theirs to navigate. What brought me the greatest joy was seeing how my personal journey sparked a wider conversation around spirituality and faith. People who once felt hesitant to voice their spiritual experiences began to share freely, inspired by the dialogue we had fostered together. Reflecting on my experiences, I feel immense gratitude for that crucial moment which altered the course of my life. It wasn't merely about surviving an accident. It represented a second chance, a vision I now feel driven to share. My mission to help others explore their spirituality feels more important than ever. The deeper I dive into this path, the clearer the mosaic of life reveals itself, filled with mystery and divine wonder. As I near the conclusion of my story, I struggle to articulate just how profoundly my experience has altered my perspective and touched so many lives. It's akin to trying to describe colors to someone who has never experienced sight. Nonetheless, I'd like to highlight some pivotal lessons gleaned from my journey. To start with, I learned that life is far more mysterious and wondrous than I previously imagined. Before my experience, I thought I had a grasp on the workings of the world. Now I see we've only begun to explore the depths of reality, unveiling layers of existence that inspire rather than daunt us. And then there's love, a force that transcends anything we typically consider. It's not merely the type usually depicted in romantic films. It's a profoundly deeper, universal affection that connects us all. I've had this incredible experience where I felt love emanating from a bright, transcendent force, something that seems to fill every inch of existence. It doesn't hold judgments or draw lines. It simply is, and we are woven into that fabric. I also found myself reflecting on death. Rather than viewing it as a final curtain call, I see it as a doorway that leads to something new. This shift in thinking has deepened my appreciation for each breath I take. Instead of dreading the end, I find myself savoring every moment here on this planet. In my journey, I've come to understand that having faith isn't about knowing all the answers. It's about being open to the mysteries of life, embracing the unknown, and appreciating the beauty that comes from asking questions. It's important to realize that doubt isn't the enemy of faith. Rather, it's a crucial part of the quest that leads us toward truth. I began to recognize something profound. Everyone has their own distinct purpose. It might not be something grandiose, but it holds value in its quiet existence. Each person's path enriches the overall tapestry of life. Just think about it. Every little kindness we extend imbues our lives with meaning, weaving together the intricate fabric of our shared experience. Each act of compassion sends out waves that ripple far beyond what we can see. Through time, I learned to appreciate the significance of being authentic to myself. The fears that once haunted me weren't the result of divine punishment, but rather a personal hell we build when we hide our true selves. When we live without authenticity, we lock ourselves away in a prison of our own making. Another realization hit me. Real spirituality doesn't hinge on rigid rules or dogmas. It's all about fostering a genuine connection with the divine, however we perceive it. You can feel that bond not just in a serene church, but also in the breathtaking beauty of the mountains, the innocent giggle of a child, or the warmth found in the hug of a friend. Forgiving ourselves and others became this powerful moment of clarity. Clinging to anger, guilt, or shame only weighs us down, keeping us from soaring. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting or making excuses. It's about freeing ourselves from the oppressive weight of those burdens. Every person we meet serves as a teacher, offering lessons through our conversations, interactions, and even disagreements. No one is ordinary. Each of us holds a universe of experiences and potential within. As I think about life, it strikes me that every single day offers us a unique chance to make a real impact. You don't have to achieve something grand to spark positive change. Often, a small act, like a warm smile, a few uplifting words, or simply showing kindness, can genuinely shift someone's journey. Reflecting on that fateful day of the accident, I find myself amazed by the path I took after it. It was anything but straightforward. It was a journey laced with confusion and fear. There were countless nights when I found myself waking up in terror, my mind racing with vivid recollections. I often wondered if I was losing my mind or if my experiences were real. But during those dark moments of uncertainty, the clarity and love I had felt pulled me back. It motivated me to push forward, to search for deeper understanding, and to summon the courage to share my story. Now, years later, since that transformative experience, I've adopted the mindset of a constant learner. Each day brings fresh lessons, challenges, and opportunities to grow. My work as a priest has evolved immensely. It's less about delivering sermons and more about fostering connections and understanding. Imagine having someone across from you engaging in profound discussions about life and our purpose. They might point out that we often obsess over providing answers when we should be focusing on the questions instead. It's almost a gentle nudge for us. How about less judgment and more love? When posed with the question of fearing death, the response is strikingly serene. Not at all, they reply, expressing a genuine appreciation for the fleeting beauty of life. While they cherish every moment alive, they possess a deep insight that view death not as an end, but as a transition into another state of being. What truly pains them isn't death, but the thought of not wholly experiencing life while they still have the chance. They often face inquiries about God's existence or what happens after we die, all stemming from their own experiences. With a thoughtful hesitation, they acknowledge the challenge of proving anything definitive. Their journey has been intensely personal and subjective, and they have no desire to force their beliefs onto anyone. Instead, they encourage others to embark on their explorations, to question and discover their own truths. If there's one vital lesson they hope to share, it centers around love. This isn't about fleeting romantic feelings. It's something far more profound, an expansive love that connects us all, uniting us with each other and the universe at large. Imagine a love that reaches far beyond our everyday lives, something so profound it even echoes beyond death. Those who have brushed against the edge of that experience often find that this love is everywhere, in every particle, every star, in each living soul. It's an intrinsic part of our being, waiting patiently for us to recognize and share it. We believe that our mission is to let this love flow freely, influencing our words, our thoughts, and our actions. Yet that's not always so straightforward. Life can often feel like a deep, shadowy place, filled with pain and unfairness. In those moments, despair can easily creep in. However, we mustn't forget that no matter how dark it seems, there is an unwavering light shining through, a beacon of love, kindness, and hope. Each of us has the potential to be a source of this light. With every act of kindness and every uplifting word, we create tiny sparks that let that divine light break through the clouds of the world around us. The more we allow this light to radiate through us, the more it spreads, transforming everything in its path. If you find yourself navigating through a murky fog or feeling the weight of loneliness, take a moment to listen. You are loved. Your presence here on this earth counts. Your life has its own unique purpose, even if it doesn't match what you or others might have expected. Embrace the unknown, because the path we walk is rarely straight. It's full of twists, turns, and unexpected joys. Sometimes, straying from the beaten track helps us uncover who we truly are. It's a comforting thought that we aren't alone on this journey. We're all interconnected, part of something larger. Every time you reach out a helping hand, choose love over fear, or let go of past grievances, by embracing forgiveness, you're aligning with a profound truth. In my own encounter with death, I caught a glimpse of what might lie beyond this life. But it also helped me recognize the beauty of this moment and the importance of cherishing the life we live now. This very moment is an opportunity for growth, love, and creating meaningful change. So, my final piece of advice: dive into life. Love deeply, forgive readily, and extend kindness both to others and to yourself. Seek out the truth, but keep your heart open to the mysteries that lie ahead. Above all, let love light your way. Through my journey, I've come to understand that this essence, love in its purest, simplest, and most limitless form, is what it all boils down to. As I share the final thoughts of my journey, it's essential to acknowledge that this isn't quite the end. Each day brings new discoveries, hurdles, and moments of awe. My wish is that by opening up about my experiences, I've touched your heart in some way, sparked a bit of curiosity, or maybe even shed some light in your life. Through my encounters with mortality, I've learned one crucial truth. Even in the bleakest times, hope, love, and light persist. And that, my friends, is definitely something to cherish, fight for, and embrace repeatedly.